Second.
Doctor.
Hello.
Hello,
Can you see
doctor.
the slide?
Hi,
Yep.
doctor. Phone is in the waiting room.
Oh, kejap. Ni ke tak ada notification pula.
Fatihah pun in the waiting room.
Sayang tak ada notification. Okay. Normally pop up notification. Tak tahu. Okay. Then. All right. Can you guys see my slides? All of you can see the slide.
Can, doctor?
Okay. Okay. Today we're going to talk about micronutrient, and the topic is minerals. I'm sure all of you know what minerals are, right? Meet your friends. Okay, minerals. Ada yang friend nak join lagi ke? Anyway, let's continue. Micronutrients and minerals. Minerals, we know that minerals are inorganic substances or it's a chemical compound or element. Where it can be found the minerals? Normally we can find the mineral in soil, right? Most of the mineral in soil. Essential nutrient required by organism to perform functions vital for life. We need this, type of micronutrient in order to, in order to perform, important function in our body. We as a human, we require substantial amount of mineral on a daily basis. We don't need that much. We need them in a very small amount, but it is essential, important, very important. So how are these minerals can be classified? Two subclasses. Originate in the earth, as I explained, mentioned about, we can find mineral in the soil. It originates in the earth, cannot be made by a living organism. It's one of the 4 groups of essential nutrients. Others are vitamins, fatty acid, and essential amino acids needed for proper functioning of the organ, bone, tissue, and immune system. So two subclasses of this mineral: macro minerals and trace mineral. What are different between these two, macro mineral and trace mineral? We know that minerals are only required in a very small amount by our body. Okay, macro mineral, our body requires slightly higher amount of micro minerals than trace mineral. Trace mineral, the name as the name says here, trace mineral, trace meaning that's a very little amount, but we really need them, even it's a very small amount. Okay, looking at this periodic table here, micro minerals in pink boxes here, macro minerals, sodium, magnesium, calcium, chloride, and so on, while trace mineral in the green boxes here, chromium, manganese, zinc, copper, nickel, molybdenum, iodine, selenium, So these are all macro minerals and trace minerals. So we're going to discuss about micro minerals first. Macro minerals can be sodium, chloride, potassium, calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, and sulfur. Right. So these are all the most important micro minerals that are needed, are required by our body. If we look at the the amount of this mineral in the body of, for example, 60 kilogram human body, about 132 pounds of human body contains the highest minerals or macro minerals is calcium, about 1150 gram of calcium can be found in an individual weight of 60 kilogram. And the second most abundant is phosphorus, followed by potassium, sulfur, sodium, chloride, and manganese. Okay, this is macro mineral. Why we can find calcium in the highest amount compared to the rest of the macro mineral? It is because we can find calcium in our bone, right? So that's why calcium is the most abundant macro minerals in our body. Followed by phosphorus. Phosphorus also related to the bone formation and so on. That's why we can find these two, the two most highest macro minerals in human body, and the rest is slightly lower. Not slightly lower, significantly lower compared to these two here. So that the macro minerals are those present in amount larger than 5 gram or teaspoon. Pound is about 454 grams, so about 500 grams more or less. Thus, only calcium and phosphorus appear in amounts larger than a pound. So you see here, all of these are larger than 5 grams, so it is considered as a macro mineral. While below magnesium from iron to selenium, they are trace minerals. There are more than a dozen of trace minerals, although out of a dozen, only 6 are shown here because the rest, um, the amount of the other type of trace minerals are very small, very little. So, for example, iron here, 2.4 gram of iron per 60 kilogram human body, while zinc 2, copper 0.09, and selenium, manganese, iodine 0.02. They are very little, very small amount can be found in the human body. So the rest, like significantly lower than this. They are important, even though they are very little. Okay, let's talk about see about sodium first. Sodium, Na, molecular weight of 22.989 or 23. The function of sodium as a generally we know that sodium as a fluid volume regulator, a systemic electrolyte, and essential in co-regulating ATP with potassium. So both potassium and sodium are needed to bind with the ATP. In reality, actually, if we talk about ATP, it is actually um, you know need sodium to regulate it. The sources of potassium, processed food. Processed food contains high amount of sodium, so it's not. Second, I admit a friend. Okay, so processed foods, you can find a high amount of potassium in almost all, if not all, the processed food. You just because of the need of the sodium to preserve the shelf life of the processed food. That's why people we have been told that processed food is not good for our health because the high amount of sodium. We need sodium, but we don't need that much that much dose of sodium from the processed foods. Can get it from cheese, bread, cereal. Okay, the condition of sodium imbalance, whether the individual has too much sodium or very little sodium in their body, what's going to happen to them? Hypernatremia, usually associated with dehydration, having too much sodium and too little water. So this water loss can occur from illness, when an individual vomiting or diarrhea, excessive sweating from exercise, or fever. So this can cause hypernatremia. Or hyponatremia, first one hyper and the second one hyponatremia, caused by water intoxication, drinking so much water. So we know that we need to drink lots of water, but not too much water. About the adults, as adult, we as an adult, we are required to drink about more or less 2 liter of water every day. Not too much. So it when for those who drink so much water, too much water, it will dilute the sodium in the blood. So it will cause the low sodium in the body. So the symptoms can be lethargy, confusion, weakness, swelling, seizures, and coma. This can occur with both hyper and hyponatremia. High blood pressure can result from too much salt in the diet, which can increase risk of heart disease and stroke. That's why, because of the sodium, the high amount of sodium can cause high blood pressure. So that's why when someone who has a high blood pressure, doctor will tell them, don't eat too much salt, right? Because it can increase the blood pressure of the patient, and also can cause kidney failure, because too much sodium, the kidney will find very hard to excrete them. After a period of time, it can cause problem with the kidney damage. A normal blood sodium level around 135 to 145 milliequivalent per liter, or international units IU 135 to 145 millimoles per liter. The second one, chloride. The function of the chloride, maintaining fluid and electrolyte balance, similar with sodium. It works with other minerals as well, such as Na, sodium and potassium, to maintain the proper balance of body fluids as well as their pH balance. So you normally see chloride, as a sodium chloride or potassium chloride, right? Because this is the fluid and to balance the electrolytes in our body fluids, and as well as to maintain the pH, to regulate the pH of our body. Essential component of digestive juice, because we need HCl, HCl made of hydrogen and chloride ion. So we need chloride for the digestive juice in the form of HCl in our stomach. The source of chloride mostly comes from processed food, very similar with sodium, because table salts, sodium chloride. So we have sodium and chloride. Condition of chloride imbalance. Excess of chloride is called hyperchloremia. So this hyperchloremia is an electrolyte disturbance in which there is an elevated level of chloride in the blood. Too much water being excreted in the urine, therefore less water is available to dilute these areas of high chloride ion concentration. Can be due to diarrhea, vomiting, burns, renal disease, renal failure, kidney damage, and so on. For the deficiency of chloride is called hypochloremia. This is an electrolyte disturbance as well, in which abnormal low level of chloride ion in the blood. It is rare as chloride is part of stable salt, which is present most in food. So hypochloremia is rarely found in the patient's body. Normally, excess of chlorides along with the sodium. The normal serum range for chloride is about 97 to 107 milliequivalent per liter, slightly lower than sodium. Then number 3, potassium. The potassium, we know potassium, we can find potassium in avocado, in banana, for example, right? The function for potassium, maintain fluid and electrolyte balance, very similar with sodium and chloride. Homeostasis of membrane potential to maintain the steady heartbeat. We can find potassium in both plant and such as fruit and vegetable, as well as in animal cells, less found in processed foods. And what about condition? How about condition of potassium imbalance? Excess of potassium called hyperkalemia. Electrolyte disturbance in which elevated level of potassium ion in the blood above 5.5 milliequivalent per liter, because the normal serum range of this potassium is about 3 to 5.5. So this one, the statement on the bottom is wrong. It's not chloride, it's potassium. Sorry for the mistake. So the common cause for this excess of potassium is because of the kidney damage, kidney failure, since we know that the kidney excrete potassium and other other stuff from our body. So if there's a problem with the kidney, impairment in the normal function of kidney can cause potassium level to rise, because the kidney will not be able to excrete this potassium. You may experience nausea, slow, weak and irregular pulse, because potassium is responsible for steady heartbeat. Too much potassium can have a problem with the heartbeat or fainting. Low level of potassium in the blood is called hypokalemia. Electrolyte disturbance, in which normally low level of potassium ion in the blood, heart palpitation or rapid pulse, can cause muscle weakness. Sweating while exercising can deplete your electrolytes. So it is because of the dehydration. So that's why, for those who regularly exercise or actively joining take part in the sports event, the sport person, they drink, we call it electrolyte drinks, in order to maintain the level of potassium, sodium and chloride. So hypokalemia can cause diarrhea, vomiting, certain medication, because of the certain medication, and poor diet as well. The effect of processing on sodium and potassium contents of food. The examples, we have 5 examples here. The first one, milk, the whole milk. Before we process the milk, you can see the purple color is potassium, the yellowish orange color is sodium. So the milk contains high amount of potassium and low amount of sodium. But when you process the milk into, for example, instant pudding like Jello, you see the amount of sodium increase, while the amount of potassium will be decreased in the product. For meat, roast beef contains very high amount of potassium and slightly low amount of sodium. But when you process the beef, into cheap beef or into we call it beef jerky, for example, you introduce people, sodium, high amount of sodium is introduced into the processed beef. So we can see here too much sodium in the processed beef and very small amount of potassium left. Fresh corn, very high amount of uh, potassium, very little amount of sodium. But when you process the corn, it turns into the canned corn, cream corn. You introduce sodium, so potassium level will be lower than the sodium. And for example, fresh peaches, fresh peaches almost contain no or very little amount of sodium. But when turned into a peach pie, sodium being introduced into the product and low amount of potassium left. While rolled oats, similarly with the fresh peaches, rolled oats, which is very good for our health, contain high amount of potassium, very little to no sodium at all. Well, when oat cereal, turn into product of oat cereal, sodium is significantly higher than potassium. So based on this, you see that when we process the food, we introduce high amount of sodium because we want to extend the shelf life of the food product here, because the raw material here contain no or little sodium, cannot last longer compared to the processed product here. Because why? Can anyone want to try why when we process the food we introduce high amount of sodium? Anyone wants to share with the class? Ada tak? Or ada nak share why do you think processed food contain high amount of sodium? Why processed food need high amount of sodium? Danu, do you have Danu?
Yes, doctor.
What do you think? Why processed food contains high amount of sodium?
Like doctor said just now, it's to prolong the shelf life of their products.
Yeah, why?
So it's for preservation.
Okay, half correct. It's good. Okay, thank you very much. Good try. So we want to extend the shelf life of the product for preservation because we don't want the microorganism to be able to live in the processed food, because that's why we introduce high amount of salts in the form of sodium, right? Because the sodium, the microorganism cannot survive in the environment that contain high too much sodium. So if you process the food, you introduce sodium, and no microbes can be able to live there. So it extends the life of the product. Okay, now let's see about calcium. Calcium, okay, we already discussed yesterday about calcium, right? Most abundant minerals in the body, about 1100 gram per 60 kilogram body weight. Calcium ion in the human body about 1 to 1.5 kilogram. 99% can be seen in bone together with phosphate. Small amount in soft tissue and 1% in extracellular fluid. The function of the calcium, structurally supporting material in bones as calcium hydroxyapatite. Vital blood clotting factor in the plasma, calcium and phospholipid, platelet membrane constituent, Calcium also responsible for membrane permeability, muscle contraction, and hormone secretion. Regulation of plasma calcium level. I think I already explained this yesterday. Anyway, just explain it again so that it's easier for you to understand, to memorize it. So if the calcium ion level is too high, the thyroid hormone, thyroid gland release calcitonin. Calcitonin will increase the calcium ion deposition in the bones. So and decrease calcium ion uptake in intestine. So we don't, because we already have too much calcium in the blood, so we don't need any more calcium. So the intestine decrease the calcium uptake and decrease calcium reabsorption from urine. So calcium level falls, homeostasis, normal calcium level in blood. Okay, parathyroid hormone release PTH. If calcium ion levels too low, this one thyroid, don't mix them. This is parathyroid hormone release PTH. PTH hormone increase calcium release from bones. So it tells the bone to release some of your calcium because the blood has no calcium or very low level of calcium in the blood. Please, bone, please, can you release some of your calcium, share with the blood, and then increase uptake of calcium in intestine and increase calcium ion reabsorption from urine, and then calcium level rise and homeostasis. Okay, this is how our body regulate the plasma calcium level. Okay, next, calcium on sources of calcium. Milk, cheese, yogurt, broccoli, kale, Chinese cabbage. We talked about this yesterday as well. Daily requirement of calcium for adults like us, 500 milligram per day. Children's higher, 1200 or 1200 milligram per day. Why? Because our bones already completely formed, while children, toddler, and babies, they are still developing, so they need high amount of calcium. While for pregnancy and lactation, ladies requires even higher, about 1500 milligram per day. After the age of 50, tendency for osteoporosis can be prevented by increased calcium, about 15,000 milligram per day, and vitamin D about 20 microgram per day. So, if you want to take care of yourself or your bone, because due to the age factor, after the age of 50 or when you are reaching age of 45 to 50, you can try to increase your daily calcium intake to 1500 and take vitamin D 20 microgram a day, so that we are after you reach the age of 50, you can prevent the osteoporosis from happening. So the condition of calcium imbalance, excess of calcium, hypercalcemia. High calcium level in the blood, about above 2.6 millimole per liter, considered as hypercalcemia. Symptoms may include abdominal pain, bone pain, confusion, depression, weakness, kidney stone can occur, abnormal heart rhythm, including cardiac arrest. Main causes primarily hyperparathyroidism, or also can be due to cancer as well. Deficiency, hypocalcemia, low calcium level in the blood less than 2.1 millimole per liter. Osteoporosis can happen, resulting in the progressive loss of bone mass, common cause hypoparathyroidism. You know, if you go back to the regulation of our blood calcium level, you know, you can see why the parathyroid hormone is important for this calcium level regulation. Hypoparathyroidism, vitamin D deficiencies, because vitamin D can increase the calcium absorption in our body, as well can be caused by the kidney damage or kidney failure. To treat this, include vitamin D, magnesium, and calcium supplement. Phosphorus. Phosphorus, the second most abundant mineral in the body, around 600 gram per 60 kilo body weight. 80 to 85% of phosphorus in the body can be found in bone and teeth. The human contains 0.6 to 1 kilogram of phosphorus, depends on the the individual weight, body weight. The function for phosphorus for the growth, maintenance, and repair of all tissue and cells. We need phosphorus for our cells. It is essential for formation of bone and teeth as a structural support, together with calcium, as well as in energy metabolism. Phosphorus are needed for the formation and utilization of high energy phosphate compound like ATP, ADP, GTP, or NDP. So all of these required phosphorus, right, in the form of phosphate. So without this, we cannot generate or synthesize ATP for our body, because these are all energy currency for living cells. Formation of phospholipid are the main structural component of cell membrane. So cell membrane also contains phosphorus in the form of phospholipid. Phosphorus can be found in food rich in protein, because protein supply contain phosphorus. Protein rich foods such as meat, poultry, fish, eggs, dairy product, nuts, and legumes. For example, here other sources include whole grains, hard potatoes, and dry fruits. Mainly, you can find high amount of phosphorus in animal products. Daily requirement of phosphorus, about 700 milligram. And the condition for phosphorus imbalance, excess of phosphorus, called hyperphosphatemia. Abnormally elevated level of phosphate in the blood. The main cause, impaired renal phosphate excretion due to hypoparathyroidism. So basically, from the first mineral that we discussed up to now, main cause of excess of these minerals, macrominerals, is due to the kidney damage, because kidney is supposed to excrete excess of these minerals. But if kidney damage occur, the kidney are no longer be able to excrete them. So it can cause high excess amount of phosphorus or other minerals in our body. Also can be because of the hypoparathyroidism as well. Deficiency, hypophosphatemia, very rare. Main cause, malabsorption, instability of cell membrane due to low ATP level. So without phosphorus, we cannot synthesize ATP. So can cause weakness, lethargy, muscle dysfunction, and so on. Because all of these process needs ATP, needs energy, right? Magnesium, Mg. Magnesium typically occurs as magnesium ion, Mg2+, present in every cell type in every organism. So we can find magnesium in every cell type. Why? It is because magnesium can be found attached to ATP. All cells requires ATP, right? Because ATP are needed for the energy process of the cells. So ATP actually, in reality, in the cells, ATP always bind to magnesium. So in general, it calls MgATP, but to make it easier for us to understand, we just call ATP, but in reality, it's MgATP. More than 300 enzymes require the presence of magnesium ion for their catalytic action. So you see 300 enzymes, more or less, approximately 300. So magnesium is very important. In plants, magnesium is necessary for synthesis of chlorophyll and photosynthesis. Again, energy for plants and energy for animal. Function of magnesium, cofactor in many enzyme systems, regulate numerous reactions, bind to ATP, making it active, MgATP, stabilize the polyphosphate compound in the cells, including those associated with synthesis of DNA and RNA. Oxidative phosphorylation requires ATP, part of the 300 type of enzyme reaction. One of them for oxidative phosphorylation reaction. Magnesium requires in glycolysis. I hope you know by now about the glycolysis. Magnesium critical to heart function, important for coordinating the activity of the heart muscle and the nerve that initiate the heartbeat. And this because its influence on the heart electrical conduction system. Magnesium essential for maintenance a smooth, regular heartbeat. So magnesium and phosphorus, right, to maintain the steady heartbeat. The source of magnesium widely distributed in plant and animal foods. Green vegetables such as spinach contains high amount of magnesium. Nuts such as almond, Brazil nut, cashew contain high amount of magnesium. Hot water rich in magnesium and calcium. So do we have hot water in Malaysia? Or soft water? Do you know about the water that we have in our country? Anyone wants to share? Maybe some of you know about this. Tahu tak?
Tak tahu, doktor.
Tak tahu, doktor. Okay. Let me ask our French student, Luana or Sarah. How about the water in France? Is it hard water or soft water?
I think it's soft water, but I'm not sure because it depends on where you are in France. For example, in Paris, there's a lot of limestone in the water.
Yes.
In the south, I think there is none. So it depends where you are in France.
Oh, okay. I know that in Paris, you can Paris water is considered or classified as hard water. Okay, because I don't know how do you do in France? Different region, maybe different bodies that are responsible for the water system. In France, in Paris, I think there's you can get free water. There's a lot of free water fountain in Paris, around Paris, right? That you can just take your empty bottle and fill up with the cold water there. So it is categorized as hard water. But in Malaysia, our water is categorized as soft water because the level of the mineral contains in our water is low. All right. For example, in London, they have the water that they use there is considered as hard water. So to make it easier for you to know whether the water is hard or the water is soft water, if you see at the tap of your tap water at your home or college, whatever, if you see the mineral build-ups, there's a lot of mineral build-ups at around the tap, the pili itu kan, the tap water there. If you see the mineral build-up at the tap, it is because of the hard water, the build-up, the mineral build-up around the tap. So in Malaysia we don't have that much, maybe slightly, but we consider as soft water. But in London, if you see the tap at any home, you see the build-up of the minerals around the tap. After, even if you have a kettle, if you use kettle to boil water, right? After maybe 1 or 2 months, you can see the mineral build-up at the bottom of the kettle. So we have to, if you want, you can clean them, or if you don't want, you just leave them. But in Malaysia, we don't have that problem. Our kettle is as clean as we get it from the shop, right? So that's how you can know about whether the water is hard or soft. So in Malaysia, we don't have hard water. So our water is considered soft water, and because the amount of minerals such as magnesium and calcium and other type of minerals are low. Daily requirement of magnesium for adults about 320 to 420 milligram per day. Imbalance for magnesium called hypomagnesemia. Too little magnesium, nitrate deficiencies, inability of the intestine to absorb magnesium. This all can be a cause to hypomagnesemia. Common causes of low magnesium including alcoholism, chronic diarrhea, medication like diuretic pills used to control high blood pressure. So these all can decrease the intestinal absorbability of the nutrient of the magnesium. So, hypomagnesemia, too much magnesium, most often occurs in patients with kidney function problem, kidney failure, kidney damage. So excretion of magnesium is limited because the kidney cannot excrete the magnesium. Often associated with hypocalcemia and hyperkalemia. So when the individual have hypocalcemia and hyperkalemia, so you might also have hypermagnesemia. Next, sulfur. Sulfur is the fourth most abundant element in the human body by weight, about equal in abundance to potassium and slightly greater than sodium and chlorine. For example, here 60 to 70 kilogram human body contains about 140 gram of sulfur. The function of sulfur, key component, main component in most protein, since it is contained in the amino acids methionine and cysteine, right? Because due to this, because of these two amino acids contain sulfur in their structure, so sulfur is considered as the key component in most protein, since the amino acids, protein is made of amino acids. Formation of disulfide bond between cysteine residue, important role in the folding and stability of some protein. Integral part of the biological structure that forms skin, hair, nails, and etc. These are all the main function of sulfur in our body. So you can get sulfur from cruciferous vegetable, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, kale, rich in sulfur-containing substance known as glucosinolates, which gives slightly bitter taste, as well as in the Brussels sprouts, because it's bitter. So because of this, glucosinolates. Protein-rich foods such as fish, poultry, meats, and nuts also contain high amount of sulfur, and the daily requirement of sulfur is about 800 to 900 milligram per day for adults. deficiencies for sulfur, minimal reason for concerns, because there are no clear defined symptoms exist with either stage, toxicity or deficiency. The condition can be various, such as acne, arthritis, brittleness, and hair. Okay, we finished on the macro minerals from from calcium to sulfur. Any question before we proceed, or we can take 5-minute break? Maybe we take 5-minute breaks. Let me rest a bit. Okay. We will continue on first mineral, 10, make it 10:15. All right. Okay. See you again, 10:15. Okay, you guys ready? You guys there? Semua okay lagi. Fatia, okay ke Fatia? Are you okay Fatia?
Okay.
Dah minum dah?
Okay, Doktor.
Fatia dah minum dah?
Minum.
Dah breakfast dah?
Breakfast.
Mana tahu kan terlupa.
Kau puasa ke?
Dah mana tahu terlupa saya bagi rest pergi minum ke. Dah terbiasa. Okay, lain semua okay kan? Okay, shall we continue? Yes, no, tired, cannot digest anymore. Shall we continue or not? Continue, yeah?
Yes. Yes, Doctor.
Okay. Semua macam penat je. Okay, so let's continue on the trace minerals. Trace minerals. Iron, zinc, iodine, selenium, copper. Kenapa ni? Oh, ramai yang terkeluar dapat ni. Because maybe because of the connection. Okay, copper, manganese, chloride, chromium, molybdenum. These are all trace minerals that can be found in our body. Iron and zinc slightly higher, and the rest very little amount. Trace mineral, small, very small amount found in the body, because only small amounts are needed by our body. The deficiencies of these trace minerals can be fatal, very dangerous, while excess also can be deadly. So there's a small range of dose of minerals, trace minerals that we need to take for our body. Trace minerals active in all body systems. And their content depends on soil, water composition used in agriculture. Right? So depends on the type of soil, the water that used in agriculture, and you can find that even the same type of produce, such as fruits or vegetable, can contain different amount of minerals depending on where the fruits or vegetable are grown or are planted. The first trace minerals, which considers as the most abundant trace mineral, even though they are still a small amount, but compared to the other trace minerals, ions considered as higher than the rest. Essential element for most form of life, iron. We need iron, right? It's very vital for our body, especially during pregnancy. That's why pregnant ladies, doctors ask them to take iron supplement, folic acid supplement, mediate electron transfer in the form of ferrous state. It acts as an electron donor, while in the ferric state as an acceptor. I hope you know ferrous and ferric. What's different between these two iron here? The most commonly known and studied bioorganic iron compound are the heme protein. So heme protein, the most abundant or most studied bioinorganic iron compound. Hemoglobin, myoglobin, cytochrome P450. Hemoglobin is an oxygen carrier, occurs in, it can be found in our red blood cells and contribute to their color. Myoglobin, protein in muscle, stores it until it is needed. So, iron source. Normally, excuse me. Okay, iron sources. High amount of iron can be found in red meat, fish, poultry, eggs, legumes are good source of iron. You can see the beef here, the meat here, or the chicken. You can see it now in Bazaar Ramadan. Recommended daily intake from 7 to 18 milligram per day for the general population, and up to 27 grams for pregnant women because of the childbearing reason. So the pregnant woman needs double or more or less triple the amount that we need by our body need. Citrus fruits can help iron absorption. How? Someone knows why citrus fruits or juice can help iron absorption? Ada siapa? Anyone wants to try? Anybody wants to try to share with the class why citrus fruits, citrus juice can help iron absorption? Or should I call name? Apa ya? Let's see. Shin Er. Shin Er, are you there?
Yes, doctor.
You want to try? Do you have any idea why citrus fruits or citrus juice can help iron absorption and increase the ability of our body to absorb iron? You want to try? Any idea?
I'm not sure.
Okay, tak ada yang nak try.
Uh,
Anybody else?
what I search is about it captures the non-hem ion.
Sorry, say it again.
Okay, the citrus fruit is about the vitamin C, and then it will capture the non-hem ion.
Okay, all right. I give you 3.5 out of 5. Okay. Okay, good try. Thank you very much. Okay, based from this statement, you know citrus fruits contain high amount of vitamin C, right? Vitamin C contained in all of the citrus fruits such as orange and grapefruit and so on. So because of the high amount of vitamin C, we know that vitamin C is an antioxidant. Okay. Due to the reason of the iron is actually a transition metal. What do you know about, what can you say about the transition metal? Transition metal is not stable. Iron is not stable. So it needs something to hold them. Like what Shin explained just now, to bind with the iron, because iron is not stable, because transition metal is not stable. It needs something to hold them, to make them, to stabilize them. So like this is not stable. So how do we do that? Because a citric acid and ascorbic acid in citrus juice can form a metal chelation complex. It's an agent for chelating agent. I'm sure that all of you, you've been learning this, maybe in your chemistry class, whatever that's related to this, that chelating agent responsible to bind with the unstable iron, right? So to make it, to stabilize it. The reason for its action are, first, prevent the formation of insoluble and unabsorbable iron compound. So because iron is not stable, transition metal, it's very hard to get, to be absorbed by our body. We need to stabilize it, to chelate it, to bind with something in order for our intestine to be able to absorb it by the intestinal cells. The reduction of ferric, the reason number two, the reduction of ferric to ferrous iron, which seems to be a requirement for the uptake of iron into the mucosal cell. So these citric acids form as a chelating agent by binding with the iron, reduce ferric to ferrous, and increase the uptake or absorption rate of this form of iron into the mucosal cell. About 100 milligram of vitamin C with meal increase iron absorption by 67% is high, is very high. So next time whenever you're going to have a barbecue, or you're going to steakhouse, eating steak, whatever, right? Try to try to have orange juice as well. So it helps your body to increase the iron absorption by 67%. It's high, it's very high. Or after you eat your steak, or after you eat beef or meat, you can take vitamin C if you want. Sign of symptom of iron deficiencies. Anemia sign and symptoms. Deficiency can be caused by malabsorption, can be due to Crohn or celiac disease. This disease that's the intestinal disease, which severe reduce the surface area available for absorption. So for the individual that patient for Crohn disease and or celiac disease, this patient has a reduced area available for the absorption of iron. Chronic bleeding and blood loss also can cause the deficiency of iron. Substances in diet or drugs interfering with iron absorption also can be cause of the iron deficiency. So the symptoms such as tiredness and fatigue, pallor, such as pale, conjunctiva, palm, tongue, lip, and skin. Next one, zinc. Zinc is required for the function of over 300 enzymes and 1,000 transcription factors. So zinc, we discussed about magnesium earlier on, right? Responsible or vital function for over 300 enzymes. Similarly with zinc, but zinc also responsible for about 1,000 transcription factors. Zinc stored and transferred in metallothioneins, cofactor for many enzymes affecting growth, wound healing, and carb metabolism, such as in phosphor fructokinase 1, fructose 1,6 bisphosphates. I'm not going to ask question on this enzyme here. I'm sure because I already asked lots, couple of times. So I hope by now you know what this enzyme is responsible for. These two enzymes, PFK and fructose 1,6 bisphosphates. Zinc also recognized as a messenger, second messenger, able to activate signaling pathway. Signaling pathway, is zinc considered as second messenger. You are, I don't know whether you are going to learn about signaling pathway in any other class. I don't think so. Maybe it's just in general. Signaling pathway is the signal mechanism that activate from one kinases protein to the next kinases protein. It's a phosphorylated protein, and then produce a secondary messenger, activate the downstream protein kinase, and then at the end of the signaling pathway can have different process of different biological responsible for different biological system, such as for calcium absorption, calcium release, reduction of hormone, nuclear receptor activation, and so on. So zinc are responsible for this type of signaling pathway. The source of zinc, protein-containing foods are good source of zinc. The red milk, poultry, nuts, whole grain, and dairy products, mainly from animal products. Deficiency of zinc is very uncommon, normally in population with high cereal and very low animal or no animal food consumption due to phytic acid. Okay, please find out why phytic acids can cause zinc deficiency. I think I forgot to ask you about, I asked you to find a couple of things last time, right? I forgot what are they? What are the question? What are the things that I asked you? So nobody wants care to remind me. Maybe it's okay. But I want you to find about. I'm not going to ask you a question. Maybe it can be in your first test. Maybe not. But I want you to find out why phytic acids can cause zinc deficiency. All right. So the clue is that phytic acid can be found in high amount in cereal. So the statement here says that population with high cereal and low animal foods, as I just mentioned in the previous slides, animal food contain high amount of zinc. So for those who eat high cereal and low animal food can have deficiency in zinc due to phytic acids. Please find out the reason. Okay. So the deficiency of zinc can cause growth retardation, sexual immaturity, impact immune response, can cause dry, scaling skin, acne, and eczema as well. Sorry. The syndrome of anemia, hypogonadism, and dwarfism was reported in a 21-year-old Iranian farmer in 1691. Okay, the statement here, who was subsisting on a diet of unrefined flatbread, potato, and milk. Okay, this guy here, 21-year-old Iranian farmer in 1961, has a syndrome of anemia, hypogonadism, and dwarfism. It's all about hypogonadism, sexual immaturity, dwarfism, growth retardation. Because this farmer here only eat unrefined bread, potato, and milk. Administration of supplemental zinc or diet containing animal protein food improved growth and corrected the hypogonadism, while anemia responded to all oral iron treatment. So the statement is reflect to the first statement here. Because this guy eat high amount of cereals, and low animal food, this guy has a symptom of these three symptoms here. This is due to phytic acid. Please find out why. Children daily requirement for zinc about 5 to 8 milligram per day, and for adults like us, 9 to 11 milligram per day. For lactating women or pregnant women, about 11 to 12 milligram per day. It's not that significantly higher than adult. It's just slightly higher. The next one, iodine. Main role in vertebrate biology as constituent of thyroid hormone T4 and T3, thyroxine and thyroid. Thyroid gland actively absorb iodine from the blood to make and release thyroid hormones into the blood action, which are regulated by a secondary hormone, TSH, from the pituitary. TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, released by the pituitary. The function of iodine in our body to regulate temperature. Iodine also responsible for reproduction, growth, and cell production. Iodine is very important to our body. The source of iodine, world's ocean and iodized salts are the best source. If you see here, the table here, soil with sodium iodide, sodium periodate, seaweed algae, seaweed algae from the sea, from the ocean, right? Contains potassium iodide, sodium iodide, iodine, and iodide. Seawater contains high amount of iodide. So that's why the main source of iodine is from the worlds and the organism from the sea organism. The daily requirement of iodine: 150 microgram for adults and 220 microgram for pregnant women and 290 microgram for lactation. The deficiency of iodine can cause goiter. Goiter is enlarged thyroid gland due to hypothyroidism, lack of iodine in our body. Deficiency of iodine also can cause cretinism, condition of severe stunted physical and mental growth. The statement about the Iranian farmer previously in the previous slides. This can affect unborn during pregnancy, irreversible mental and physical retardation, while excess of iodine is called hyperthyroidism, nervousness, irritability, increased perspiration and heart racing, grave disease related to excess of iodine, toxic diffuse goiter. It is an autoimmune disease that affects the thyroid. Next, selenium. Selenium, a component of the unusual amino acids. Unusual amino acids, we don't see many amino acids with selenium in the structure, such as selenocysteine and selenomethionine. Essential antioxidant nutrient, cofactor for reduction of antioxidant enzymes such as glutathione peroxidase, and the deficiency associated with Cushing disease or myocardial necrosis, the cell death, and can cause heart failure. Impaired immune response, cognitive function, and muscle pain. Also necessary for the conversion of thyroid hormone T4 into T3, triiodothyronine. The toxicity for selenium, loss and brittleness of hair and nails. And the source for selenium, mainly seafood, meat, and whole grain and vegetable. Depends on the soil content as well. So seafood, contain high amount of selenium compared to plants and vegetable, because the plant and vegetable depend on the soil content. Otherwise, it will not contain high amount of selenium if the soil does not contain high amount of selenium in it. Next, copper, Cu, copper. Important player in several enzyme reaction, similarly with magnesium, zinc, copper as well is considered as important player in several enzyme reaction as coenzyme, essential in aerobic respiration of all eukaryotes in mitochondria, found in cytochrome C oxidase, which the last protein in oxidative phosphorylation, cytochrome C oxidase. I hope you can imagine where can you find cytochrome C oxidase in the energy production. We learned it during the carbohydrate metabolism last semester, right? Found in many superoxide dismutases. Copper in superoxide dismutases catalyze the decomposition of superoxide by converting it to oxygen and hydrogen peroxide. Toxic level lead to Wilson disease. So if for individual has too many copper in the blood can lead to Wilson disease, also known as hepatolenticular degeneration. It is rare genetic disorder caused by the buildup of copper, caused by liver disease such as cirrhosis and chronic hepatitis. Small amount of copper exists in the body and are released through the urine. In Wilson disease, the copper cannot leave the body, so it accumulates in certain organs. So that's why that's it how the individual can have toxics due to the high amount of copper accumulated in the body. Deficiency leads to Menkes disease. Menkes disease caused by mutation in the copper transport gene ATP7A. This ATP7A gene responsible for making protein that is important for regulating the copper level in the body. So these genes required to synthesize the protein that can regulate and can responsible to transport and to remove the copper in our body. So without this type of protein and due to the mutation of the copper transport gene, so the individual can have Menkes disease. So deficiency of copper can cause weak muscle, development delay, and learning disorder. Premature born and the food sources such as legumes, whole grain nuts, shellfish, and seeds. Citrus fruit juice can help for copper absorption. Similarly with iron absorption, because this copper also is a transition metal, it's not stable. So citrus fruit juice and ascorbic acid can be a chelating agent for this copper. Manganese cofactor for many enzymes that metabolize carbs, lipids, and amino acids. Classes of enzymes that have manganese cofactor includes oxidoreductase, transferase, hydrolysis, lyases, isomerases, ligases, and lectins. Almost all enzyme classes contain manganese as cofactor. Manganese dependent superoxide dismutase responsible to combat this call it the radical scavenging activities, bind to the superoxide byproduct of oxidative phosphorylation and convert them to hydrogen peroxide and diatomic oxygen. The deficiency of manganese is very rare. The toxicity affects the nervous system. Variety of psychiatric and motor disturbance term manganism affect liver function as well. So similarly with other trace mineral, manganese also can be found in nuts, whole grain, and leafy veggies. Fluoride. We know what is fluoride, right? Where can we get fluoride from? Importance to identify it as an element present in dental hard tissue. So that's why our toothpaste contains fluoride. Necessary for prevent dental cavities and promotes healthy bone growth. Makes bones stronger. Teeth more resistant to tooth decay. Sources: dietary fish and tea. 9 dietary toothpaste and mouth rinses. So should be no problem with us since we have been brushing our teeth, maybe twice a day at least, right? Fluorosis. Toxicity, too much can damage teeth. So that's why there's a certain amount of fluoride they are allowed to be included in our toothpaste in order to prevent the toxicity of this fluoride, such as fluorosis. Fluoride protects our teeth, but too much can damage the teeth. Fluorosis caused by overexposure to fluoride during the first 8 years of life. This is a time when most permanent teeth are being formed. Deficiencies, incidence of dental caries, can easily get infection due to bacterial origin, causes demineralization and destruction of hard tissue of the teeth. So this is how it looks like: dental caries, bacterial infection, lack of deficiency of fluoride. Chromium, essential nutrient involved in carbs and lipid metabolism. Maintain glucose homeostasis by regulating glucose absorption by cells. This chromium can be responsible to regulate glucose absorption by the cells. Blood sugar and diabetes control play a role in insulin pathway, but still not here. A number of studies, reported that chromium can play a role in insulin pathway by increase the sensitivity of insulin in insulin resistant models, but again, different set of studies cannot come out with the same conclusion. Then the effect of chromium for insulin pathway is still not yet clear. So this is the proposed mechanism of the chromium on insulin pathway. The exact mechanism is not clear, right? So the insulin bind to the insulin receptor, the cells. There's a chromium channel along the cells, on the membrane here, where the chromium can pass through the channel. And there's a protein called apochromatulin inside the cells, waiting for the chromium to enter the cells. So once the insulin binds the insulin receptor, this insulin with the insulin receptor complex activates the chromium channel, allow the chromium channel to open its channel, allowing the chromium from the extracellular matrix enter the cells and bind with the protein called apochromiumodulin. So apochromiumodulin bind with chromium become apochromatulin complex, right? And hence these apochromatulins will bind, will activate the insulin receptor. In return, this apochromatulin can bind, activate the insulin receptor. Sorry. So this is like a circle reaction here, circle pathway. This is bind here, insulin bind to insulin receptor. Insulin receptor activate the chromium channel. Chromium channel allow the entry of chromium ion into the cells, bind to the apochromatulin, becomes holochromatulin complex. Holochromatulin complex bind to the insulin receptor, activated the receptor again. So this is the proposed mechanism of how chromium can play a role in insulin pathway and increase the insulin sensitivity. The deficiencies of chromium creates a diabetic-like symptom because as I mentioned earlier on, that this chromium responsible for glucose homeostasis, glucose absorption. So the deficiency of chromium can create diabetic-like symptom. We can get chromium from vegetables such as broccoli, grapefruit, especially the red grapefruit, as well can be found in meat and whole grain products. Molybdenum. Molybdenum, cofactor for many enzymes in protein metabolism. Xanthine oxidase, a molybdenum containing enzyme. Oxidation of xanthine to uric acid, process of purine metabolism, requires molybdenum. Molybdenum level also affects protein synthesis, metabolism, and growth. So the deficiencies for molybdenum, inability to synthesize molybdenum cofactor, so results in high level of sulfide and urate and can cause neurological damage. So our body needs molybdenum to so the oxidation of the xanthine to uric acid and uric acid excreted via urination. So without molybdenum and ability to synthesize the cofactor, so we could not produce urate. Sorry, we could not remove the urate from our body. The source of molybdenum mostly in legumes, cereal, and nuts. Next, contamination minerals. So not only the mineral, trace mineral, micro minerals, not only they are vital to our body, they can also be deadly to our body. Heavy metals, for example, lead, mercury, cadmium. These three can enter fruit through water or soil if the soils were agricultural soils, contains high amount of lead, mercury, cadmium. When when the farmer plant the vegetable or fruits on the soil, on the particular soil, the fruits and vegetable can be contaminated by these three heavy metals here. So these three can interfere with the nutrient intake and can accumulate in our body, leading to kidney and liver damage and cause toxicity. And nutrition and micronutrient in pregnancy. Let me check. This is all about vitamin A, folate, iron, iodine, calcium, and zinc, which are the most important micronutrient for during pregnancy. I think we already discussed in length about this in previous class. I don't know. Maybe I stop at contamination mineral. I think that's quite a lot for today's. And next Monday, we're going to continue on this nutrition and micronutrient in pregnancy. Nothing new, maybe very, because I already explained last week about all vitamin, folate, what's the import, why these things, these minerals and vitamins are important. And we're going to recap on next week on Monday, 1 hour class about nutrition and micronutrient in pregnancy. Okay, I think I stop now until contamination mineral. Any question from the class? No question. No, doctor. Thank you, doctor. No, okay. All right. So you can go back read the lecture notes about this, macronutrient during pregnancy, and we're going to have a very quick recap next Monday. Okay. All right. Ada kelas ke? Do you have a class next after this? The class.
Yes,
No.
Doctor.
Yes,
12.
no. 12. Kelas apa? What class ni?
Pertanian tu.
Oh, pertanian online kan?
Online lecture.
All right. So, okay. Anyway, stop here. Thank you very much, everyone, and please stay safe.
Thank you, Doctor.
Welcome.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay.